Hey, coming up on your favorite podcast, a full breakdown of last night's presidential election. All right. Probably not. We'll wait on that one, actually. They haven't decided it yet, so we don't have to talk about it. Instead, we will focus on the things that we do know, and that is NFL football Week 8 action. So much to get to. A little new game of Take Your Pick for Week 9, a little preview, some interesting COVID developments with the 49ers, and we send one more team packing to the Elimination Chamber. We do the old Yeller routine where we take them out back and finish them. I don't know who it's going to be this week, but we've got a few nominees that would like to stake their claim. All that, so much more. It's coming up next on the pod. Hey, it's the Tim Anderson Podcast Show. I'm Tim. That's Ryan over there.
Hello.
And also Zach off in the distance sorting 65,000 baseball cards. That's a lot of baseball cards.
It looks like way more than 1,000. I'm not going to
No,
lie
65,000, I think is what he said.
Yeah,
Sorry, what?
65,000. Yeah.
65 grand?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's why it's taken all summer to sort them.
He's got to get through all those different combinations of Greg Gagne and Al Newman and, get through all the Sean Dunston cards. I mean, you got to get through all those before you get to the real deal.
That's bananas.
I'll send you a Greg Gagne card, Tim.
I'll tell you this. You're sorting them faster than the state of Nevada is sorting ballots right now.
Well, they have not moved the count. Better job sorting, Zach or Nevada. I'm just curious.
My daughter has become fascinated with the election, and she even texted me today, and she's like, "How come Nevada hasn't moved all day?"
And that's where you just got to say, Vegas, baby. Things move kind of slow sometimes.
That's where my wife is right now, actually.
Tell her to get her ass in gear here and get some things counted.
Yeah, she flew out there this morning, drove her out to the airport at 4:30 this morning. I'm excited to have the apartment to myself for a few nights.
Is that why we see a stack of dishes behind you in the sink?
Let's not get into that. Look.
I'm surprised they were dishes at all.
The house is a mess. Let's be really honest about that. The entire place is just a mess. I just have to get it cleaned before she gets back.
It's you and
Exactly.
Less than 24 hours she's been gone, and already the house is just totally trashed. You and the dog have hit DoorDash 10 times. You've probably made a bolognese for dinner somewhere, and there's a big saucy pan sitting there that needs to be worked out.
You know me a little too well, Tim.
Did I hit
you
this?
That right on the head. Minus the 10 times to DoorDash. It was only once.
Once, okay.
But, I got Five Guys for dinner tonight. Nice greasy double cheeseburger.
I was gonna say you also got a burger too, right? I mean, I think that's safe to say. Of course you did. Anyway,
got it.
In a world where Kanye West got 65,000 votes for the presidency, we are now going to talk NFL football Week 8 and Week 9. But first of all, I saw that. Did you guys see that stat that he got over 63,000 votes for president?
I did see that,
including 500 in the county that we live in. 500 people were motivated enough in our county alone to go to the polls and cast their vote for Ryan's guy, Kanye West. And Ryan might have been one of them. I'm not sure.
The good news is
I don't live in that county.
he has said he's going to run in 2024.
Oh, goody.
Oh, that's great. That's exactly what we need in 2024 is more chicanery from Kanye West. That's of all the things that could happen between now and 2024, that's exactly what we need.
I'd actually legitimately like to see him run for like a Congress seat and just see how many people in a confined area would vote for him. I wonder. I wouldn't be shocked if he'd get more than 20%. Anyway.
Dude's going to run in LA and just run away with it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, in L.A., you don't think he'd get 25,000 votes just in L.A. County? Come on. Anyway.
All those lunatics out there.
Yeah, you want to live there in that dump. Anyway, welcome to the pod, everybody. By the way, for more political talk, Chris Wallace, myself, and Ryan will have a long pod when it's all said and done. We'll get him on here from Fox. He's got to be open in a couple weeks. I'm sure he'll have all kinds of time. We'll get him in. But let's talk a little football. Guys, Week 8 does represent that halfway point. It's passed. And do we have any more clarity than we did last week?
No. This week was evidence of, anything can happen. The Bengals beat the Titans. The Vikings beat the Packers.
Yeah.
Convincingly, too.
Oh, no question.
I was shocked. I honest to God, I love the Vikings, but I had that game as like 45-zip at halftime going into the game. I thought for sure it was going to be a Packers blowout.
Yeah, you guys were a little more confident than I was on what the result was going to be. It's a division game against a team coming off a bye, and Green Bay didn't play well. They killed themselves with penalties. They couldn't, get a stop. They struggled.
It does appear that they, the word on them this week, I know it's what's fun about watching NFL football is how the overreaction really takes over on the Monday after. But now all you hear coming out, like 2 weeks ago, you would have thought Green Bay was a top 3 team to win the Super Bowl. And now there's talk that, well, they're front runners. They can't play from behind. They're not going to play well in cold weather. Clearly the adverse conditions affected them. It was a windy day in Green Bay. So everybody's looking at that game as some sort of harbinger for, like, how do you beat Green Bay? You just be physical, you beat them up for 3 quarters, and you keep the ball on the ground, you don't turn it over. It seems like a pretty good recipe, because I think Tampa Bay kind of did the same thing too. But, I don't know. Is it that simple that that's it? That's the recipe, and then that's how you beat them?
Well, Green Bay really struggles against the run, and they're really is Kenny Clark back yet?
I believe he's coming back soon. No, I don't think he is.
So that you really miss him in the middle. I think you really don't have that same presence in the middle to really gum up the works for against the running game, and free your linebackers to really roam. I wonder if they'll be a lot better when Kenny Clark comes back, because the defense is talented. There's a lot of talent behind that defensive line. There's just not a lot of depth at defensive tackle, and it's hard to find a good one. And Kenny Clark's a good one.
He is back, I believe, right now.
Right now? Oh.
Now that I'm looking at him. But he's not playing the number of snaps that he was.
Okay. Yeah, you got to get him.
He's still kind of getting back in the flow, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Green Bay defense isn't causing turnovers like they did last year. So they're being exposed a little bit on these long drives. Mike Pettin, I feel like, is coaching for his job every week, it seems like. So, this is an interesting matchup this week with the 49ers, and I know we're going to talk about it a little more later in our segment, but I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and you watch Monday Night Football and you see Blake Martinez make plays for the Giants, and you sit there and go, you didn't think about this, but Blake Martinez was really an important piece to that puzzle, wasn't he? I don't watch enough Packers games to say that I'm rote on all things Blake Martinez, but Zach, I know you do. It seems like they missed that veteran presence, that guy that kind of anchors things, and he was sort of that guy.
Well, it's Kamal Martin has played in the middle of the last 2 weeks, the former Gopher, and he's been really good. But he was out injured until 2 weeks ago, and I think they've got something there with him, and he'll shore up stuff in the middle. There's a lot of problems. The scheme has some issues, I think, at times. They're not getting off the field, and like I said, they killed themselves with penalties, right? They gave the Vikings a couple of first downs on pass interferences, and
that seasseemed like obvious ones too, like obvious calls you can't even argue with.
So they've got to clean some of that up, and are they going to be in our top 5 this week? Probably not, but I don't know that I'm as worried about it as Packer Twitter seems to be.
And you'd always worry about it, Ryan. I'll let you jump in here in a second, but I'm saying, I would be more worried if other good teams didn't lose as well, right? When you looked at Tennessee and you start to go down the line, Cleveland got beat up in a windy, crappy day against Las Vegas, and now we got to think about the Raiders if they're legitimate and all that stuff. So I'd be more worried if I just didn't see more of these stinkers.
Yeah, I think that the Kamal Martin point's an interesting one. His profile kind of coming into the draft last year was that he wasn't he was good and he knows how to position himself, but he's not the most athletic middle linebacker that you're going to find out there. He's a cerebral player and he hits really hard. He's a load when he's coming up the middle to hit you. The thing is that when you play against a team like Minnesota, who runs a lot of that kind of zone blocking scheme with a lot of cutback lanes, that lack of agility gets exposed, and you kind of saw that a little bit on Sunday, where he wasn't in the spot where he always needed to be. He didn't have great gap control. And that's where you miss the consistency of a defensive lineman, where you miss, Kenny Clark being at full health and playing full snaps, because they can eat that up and help Kamal Martin find that a little bit. And he'll get there with experience, I think. But that sort of lack of overall raw athleticism and twitchiness from Kamal Martin really got exposed by Dalvin Cook and the Vikings on Sunday. And to Tim's point, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's not a ton of reason to worry about this. The best teams in the league struggled this weekend. And I mean, it's just the parody of the NFL. A lot of them are dealing with, COVID issues. A lot of them are dealing with injuries. I mean, you look at the injury list for the Packers right now, and it's 2 pages long. It's incredibly long. And every team in the NFL is going through the same thing, with the exception really of the Minnesota Vikings. They don't have that same issue that the Packers have. They've really avoided the COVID issue, despite the fact that they've run into multiple teams now that have had it. And I'm sure there's some conspiracy theorists there on Packer Twitter, saying that the Vikings are somehow escaping this every time they're playing a team that gets COVID. But the fact of the matter is that the Packers aren't healthy right now. They're a team that's very talented. They're well coached, and they didn't play well that game, but they still had a chance at points in that game to turn it. And that speaks to the talent of the team. And overall, that's going to bear out in the season more than one bad game against Minnesota.
Ryan, how nervous were you when they got the ball back with a minute to go?
Look, I have seen enough Packers games with Aaron Rodgers in my life to know that 40 seconds is too much time. Even with no timeouts, it's too much time.
I thought it was game over. I thought we were going to lose.
For sure. He stepped before DJ Wanham hit him. When he stepped up and he just kind of stepped around the rush and wound up, and I've seen that wind up 100 times. I had flashbacks, and I started to just seize up. I could feel the tension in my neck, and it was only relieved because DJ Wanham made that hit, and it was a good play by him, and it was the last guy I ever expected to hear his name called in that situation, DJ Wanham, but. It's my stress level was through the roof when I saw him step up on that throw.
Excellent breakdown of the Vikings-Packers game there, guys. Well done. Let's skip around here just a bit, though, if we can. But yes, by the way, though, I was absolutely convinced that the Packers were going to win that game late. But let's skip around. There's some teams that look like they made their way back into the mix here in a big way. Teams like Kansas City. With a big performance from Mahomes, probably his best game of the season. And then teams like Baltimore losing. It felt like they owned Pittsburgh, and yet Lamar Jackson maybe regressing here a little bit this year, and it's hurting the Ravens. I mean, what did we see? Oh, is it the Madden curse?
It's the Madden curse.
So what do you make of that? I mean, is Kansas City, are they back? And is Baltimore a team now that we sort of have to say they're good, but they can't beat anybody good, and it's because the quarterback hasn't taken that next step yet?
Now, let's be really clear about one thing here. Kansas City isn't back because they were never gone. They're 7-1.
Yeah, fair.
They had one tough game, and they lost, and they've put up 253 points so far this year. They've only given up 152. That's by far the best in their division. Offense and defense, they are far and away one of the best teams in the AFC. They were never gone.
Yeah, I think there was just some concern about the way they were winning some of those games because they weren't winning it the way they were last year, right? They weren't blowing people's doors off. But they're still right. The Steelers are undefeated, but do they scare you more than the Chiefs? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess I'd be more afraid to play Mahomes, but at the same time, that Steelers defense is pretty good, and they know how to force turnovers, and they just continue to make the play when they have to make it, and that's where you start to look at a guy like the Ravens, and you look at Lamar Jackson, and you say, And he's, there's a lot of turnovers getting committed there, and he doesn't. I don't fear Lamar Jackson like I did last year. Like I don't know if any team does.
I think that's fair.
I would say that my biggest takeaway from this weekend is, I posted this on Twitter too. I think Brian Flores might be who we thought Matt Patricia could be when he was going to Detroit.
You thought Matt Patricia would be good?
Coming out of New England,
I was not convinced.
I thought he'd be all right, especially with the talent that they had on that defense when he came in there, and they ended up reworking it a little bit. But Brian Flores is doing something down there in Miami. They got a winning record right now.
Yeah.
And that's not something we've been able to say about the Dolphins recently.
And even though Tua didn't play very well, you're not scared of Buffalo here at all, are you? I mean, Buffalo being, what are they, 5-2, 6-2? Are you scared of Buffalo? Miami could rattle off a couple wins.
No, Buffalo does nothing for me.
That division feels weak.
Yeah.
Not weak like not weak like the NFC East, but they feel weak. Buffalo, I think, though, Buffalo's just a team that's going to grind you. Like they're just going to, beat you down and eventually pop a play. I don't know that there's something about that team that it just feels like it's every week that they're in it. It feels a little inevitable that they're going to put up points in a kind of a weird way. And then here's the thing: they've scored 198 points this year, but they've given up 199, and they're 6-2. I don't think that's sustainable over a season to give up more points than you score and have a winning record.
That's breaking new ground here on the pod. It's a big stat. That is an interesting stat though that they've already given. I mean, some of that is that Tennessee game where the floodgates opened up late. I mean, but you're right. It's an odd statistic that they're not outscoring opponents to the number or to the degree that you think they should.
I mean, you look around the league. There's a few different teams that have winning records where they're losing points every week. The most glaring one I see right here is Las Vegas. They've only scored 187 points, but they've given up 203, and yet they're 4-3.
Yeah.
So when they're winning, they're winning close games, but they're losing big. They're losing blowouts.
Which scares you come playoff time, right? Because it says that they may not be able to win a hard-fought game,
This was the same thing with that 2017 Vikings team where they didn't really beat anybody. And they ended up, in a good spot in the playoffs. And, the Saints had a bad first half, but they were able really to roll over the Vikings defense in that second half. The Vikings, they really weren't that great that year. They just hit everything at the right time. And you look at a team like Buffalo and you start to wonder if maybe they're doing that, where they're just hitting teams at the right time. And sometimes that can be enough. You saw how close the Vikings got in 2017. Obviously, they got blown out in Philadelphia. Maybe that's where Buffalo's headed right now, is to go to the AFC Championship game and get blown out by someone like Kansas City. But that's where you start to see the holes develop mid-season. Is you might have a winning record, but there's some cracks in the armor here. You might have a losing record, but there's reasons to be hopeful. And you look around the league, and there's a lot of teams like that right now.
I think that there was always a saying in baseball, like people would always get hung up on like your record in 1-run games, and I think you would ignore that and say you look at your record in the 3-run games decided by 3 or more, because the good teams will win games by 3 or more. They don't get beat by 3 or more, and I think that holds true in football too, right? Like look at those. Don't look at 1-score games, right? Games that were decided by a touchdown or less. Look at the ones with the big spreads. And the good teams are going to win by big spreads and not lose by those big spreads.
That's true. Very rarely does, when you can think back to the 20 years of the Patriots, can you think of 5 times where they got beat by 2 touchdowns? I can't. I mean, I know there's a few, but there's not a lot.
Right.
I'm a little bit concerned. Are you concerned that if you are a talented athlete and you get COVID, that it kills you, like your athletic career? I mean, Cam Newton through 3 weeks looked unbeatable. Gets COVID, and now he can't hang on to the ball. He can't complete passes. It's a disaster right now in New England, and all I can do is trace it back to COVID. So that's what I'm doing. Does that mean Brandon Ayuk is not going to play well the rest of the year now too, now that he's been diagnosed?
I think the Cam stuff was a lot of smoke and mirrors to begin with, right? I mean, he was running the ball effectively. They weren't throwing it effectively, and I wasn't big on the Cam signing anyway. I thought it kind of puts the Patriots in purgatory, right? Like, he might help you win a couple games, but what's the difference between 6-10 or 4-12?
Right. Bill Belichick sort of said that as much. Like I think it was amazing candor from Belichick this week, but he was like, guys, we sold out to go to 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, and the Bills do. We've spent all the money. Like we're in salary cap hell here a little bit, and it's going to take a year or two. And I mean, it was pretty honest response from Belichick. But it also sounded like a concession, like a white flag, and that's not something that you expect to hear 8 weeks into a season from a guy like him.
It did feel like that, and it made me wonder how long until we just see Jarrett Stidham each game.
And I don't want to make this AFC East power hour here, but look, there's one other team that we haven't discussed in this division.
Don't say the Jets.
For good reason.
Don't bring them up.
There's only one reason I want to bring them up. There's one team in the NFL, singular, that has not scored 100 points yet this year. Has not broken the 100-point margin or barrier yet this year. It's the New York Jets. They have not scored 100 points all season. Cumulative.
That's a tough scene, because that's not hard. I mean,
you think about how putrid that Giants offense is, right? How awful that Giants offense is, even without Saquon Barkley, without any real help for Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. They've scored 145.
Well, we've said this before, that we think the Giants could beat the Jets 7 out of 10 times.
No, for sure. You look around the league, they're the only team that has not scored 100 points. Meanwhile, they have given up 238 points.
There's just not a lot of anything there with them.
No.
I mean, how many guys in that team are like pieces that you think, yeah, this is someone that you want around for a couple of years?
I can't think of one. I can't think of a single one. Who wants to coach that team? Who wants to be that team's GM?
Hey, man, there's only 32 of those jobs. That's for GM and coach. There's only 32, so somebody's going to want that job, and somebody's going to get it.
Do you really want to tie your reputation to the New York Jets?
Again, it's just like Zach and I touched on this during our baseball podcast, which, by the way, you can go find podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But we talked about A.J. Hinch taking the Tigers job for the same reason, right? Because all you got to do, they're terrible right now, right? So all you got to do is go 500, and you're going to be coach of the year. Think about this. Bill Parcells took the Jets job after they went 1-15 with Rich Kotite, and they didn't have much. And they were 9-7 the first year with Bill Parcells. It can be done. Somebody will want that job. Some egocentric coach will want that job.
And
right.
And you got to think that you're walking into Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, who has COVID. I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned after watching Cam and Brandon Ayuk that now Trevor Lawrence is going to come out in his first game back and he's not going to be able to throw the ball 15 yards down the field. Very concerned.
Will Dabo Sweeney be the next New York Jets head coach?
I think they're going to call Ryan's guy Herb, and they're going to see if he wants to get out of the Fox booth and come on up to the NFL and take a run at it. Or there might be a coach who coaches at Michigan right now who might be looking for an NFL job real soon, I would guess. Amicable divorce from Michigan could make sense for him.
Look, as much as I would hate to see John Harbaugh leave.
That'd be
Michigan.
Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh coaches the Ravens.
I'm sorry. They're so interchangeable in my mind. He's just so vastly overshadowed. As much as I would love to see Jim Harbaugh leave Michigan, I think that this would be a prime spot if Lincoln Riley wanted to make the jump to the NFL. It's a prove it spot. There's not a whole lot there. You get Trevor Lawrence. You can kind of build it from the ground up. You get a fresh, clean slate. There's not a whole lot there, and you can prove yourself. And we kind of see that with Cliff Kingsbury a little bit. We want to see that get sustained. But we've seen now that a college coach with an offensive mind can make the jump to the NFL. Let's see if we can do it again.
That would be interesting to see. Although I'm still not a big Lincoln Riley guy. They're having a hard time beating Kansas State. I'm not sure how I feel about him. He hasn't proven he can coach a defense in any way, shape, or form. Like, has not proven he can execute that he can put that on the field and evaluate those kinds of players.
But you can put him in a spot where he doesn't. I mean, you give him a veteran defensive coach and say, go score 50 points a game.
Could I interest you in one Mike Zimmer?
Oh, I'm sure Zim and Lincoln Riley'd get along great. I'm sure. Yeah. Can you just see those two guys having a convo at night talking strategy? Yeah, I'm sure it would go swimmingly. I'm sure old Zim is Mr. Personality in those coaches' meetings.
I think if Zim loses his job, he's going to head and stay in the division.
And be the Packers defensive coordinator, him and LaFleur?
The love fest between him and Rodgers, a week beforehand.
Oh, my God, it was embarrassing.
They're buttering each other up.
Oh, God. I haven't heard Zimmer talk that nice about any of our quarterbacks in the 6 years he's been here as the head coach. I mean,
Well, can you blame him?
No, I can't, but at the same time, I mean, come on.
That's not true. He talked that way about Teddy.
Yeah, it's like he wanted to spoon with Rodgers. It's like he wanted to put on a rom-com and just eat popcorn with him. It was embarrassing. Just embarrassing.
Can you blame him? I'd like to cuddle with Rodgers.
He seems like he'd be all right, right? Big spoon. I don't know. Anyway, time to play a little game here on the podcast. My favorite time, and Ryan's favorite time, and Zach's favorite time. We're going to play a new game here called Take Your Pick. Yep, I know. Very creative, very thoughtful game. I've got 5 games here. You can play with the spread, without the spread, whatever you want. I took these as, I think, the 5 most intriguing games for Week 9. Interested to see your take on it and why. You got the list earlier, so no surprises here. I got the lines were off of ESPN.com, so I'm not sure what they're using for their line, but we'll go with it. Game number 1 happens tomorrow night, and it might even go off the board here. Who knows? Because there's a big COVID breakout with San Francisco. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is out. I think Bourne tested positive as well. They shut the facility down. We'll see what happens. But Green Bay at San Francisco. San Francisco right now getting 5.5 from Green Bay. Your thoughts?
The number seems a little big. It's quite meaty for a Packers team that's going to be missing basically every running back that they have. But I pulled up the stats from their NFC Championship game, and Raheem Mostert, 29 carries, 220 yards. Deebo Samuel, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, George Kittle, Bourne, Emmanuel Sanders. Those are all those guys touched the ball in the NFC Championship game, and every single one of them is out.
Yeah.
Right? There's not one guy who touched the ball on offense who's going to play in this game tomorrow.
Including Jimmy Garoppolo, too.
Yeah.
Yep. The quarterback and the center. The center's out, too. Right? So not one guy who touched the ball on offense. And Emmanuel Sanders didn't even catch a pass, but they threw him one and he dropped it. So I even included him on the list. So I would take Green Bay and lay the points. It's not a must-win game because I don't believe there's such thing as a must-win game until it's you must win or you are going home. But if they don't win it, we're gonna start raising some serious questions about Green Bay's candidacy this year.
Yeah, and I mean this smacks, Ryan, a little bit of like Pittsburgh last year where they were so besieged by injuries, and Mike Tomlin, I thought, did one of his best coaching jobs to get them to 500. Don't you feel like that's Kyle Shanahan's goal right now, is like, how do we keep the ship afloat?
Look, I think that's his goal, and I think it's a noble goal. I really do. But he ain't Mike Tomlin. And I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's as good as Mike Tomlin. I don't think this team is as good as or as deep as Pittsburgh is. I just don't see it. I've got Green Bay with the points. I think that the injuries are just too much to overcome just by virtue of how many people are missing. I don't know that San Francisco is going to score a whole lot of points if they even play the game. So I have a hard time going away from Rodgers. I have a hard time saying that they're not going to put up 5.5 more points than a team that's missing its quarterback, all of its running backs, its starting center, like 3 of their receivers. I have a hard time saying it. And that San Francisco defense isn't awful. They're okay, but they're ravaged by injuries too. So there's going to be basically no pass rush on Rodgers. They're going to have some okay corners on the outside, but at the same time, if you've got no pass rush, what good are corners? So I have a hard time giving 5 points to the Niners when they're missing, 3/4 of their team.
Yeah, the one thing I will say in the defense of San Francisco, I feel like they like Nick Mullins better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and at times Nick Mullins plays really well. It is a short week, so you give these Thursday night games are always weird. They tend to go differently than you think they should. But that being said, I do think the injuries, especially the one to Kittle, I think is a killer. Right? I mean, I just don't know how you bounce back from that. I think I kind of see it your way on that one. I like Green Bay as well if they play the game. Now, is this one of those games with the COVID that they may move this and try to play it Sunday or Monday?
I think they're playing it because Green Bay already got on the plane and is out there.
That's true.
And I think if they were going to make that decision, they would have made the decision before they flew out there that this game is off. Because now, I mean, in theory, Green Bay can't go back, right? They're not going to fly back home on Friday to turn around and fly back out there Saturday.
Right.
So I think they're playing this game. But it brings up an interesting point, like, what is the criteria to delay a game?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like I don't want to say there's double standard, but, like, we don't know. Like, we don't know. What is the standard?
Yeah. I mean, when Cam Newton goes down and they only have the one positive, the Kansas City-New England game got moved Monday night. They had to delay that game. They gave 1 day on that, but they didn't give a delay to Las Vegas. And now, we get the Ayuk news tonight. Like, I don't know. I guess, yeah, you're right. What's the standard and what's the waiting time? Like, does it have to be a certain number of tests by a certain time? I mean, how does this work? And I wish there would be a little bit of clarity on that because it would help, teams and it would help guys like us make decisions on who to pick.
Yeah, and I don't mind that we're playing it because that's what this season is. The season is going to have that, and it's part of the deal. It's frustrating because it feels like football didn't have a plan, right? And we've talked about this, and we don't need to rehash it all. But football, like they could have built in a couple extra bye weeks, or they could have done a lot of things, and they just went, nope, we're just going to go for it. And it felt like the other sports at least had a plan, right? Like we got a bubble in basketball. Baseball said, hey, we'll do double headers. We can do this and that. So it's just that part of it is a little frustrating.
Yeah, the Big Ten had a pretty good plan, too, it looks like. That seems like it's going well for the folks at the University of Wisconsin who are going to play 5 games. But, hey.
It sounds like they may just shut it down for the year.
They almost should. I mean, they are so ravaged, which can only be hubris, right? I mean, I don't know what the hell happened there. But
I think it's to the point now where they're not even going to get enough games where they'll be eligible to play, in the postseason. So they're kind of saying, like, well, what's the point here? Like, why do we run out there for 4 games and
that's fair.
What do we have to gain from it?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that's, hey, give us the axe. We win by default. That's all I got to say. All right, next game.
PJ'd hang a banner for that.
I think we'd hang
that post.
I'd just like to point out that PJ Fleck and I have won the same amount of Big Ten games this year.
I'm telling you, that schoolyard feud. We're going to get to the bottom of this. I know it. There's got to be something there. Next game. Chicago is at Tennessee. Tennessee is giving 5.5.
I am on Tennessee on this one as well. I just think that the Bears are such a mess at quarterback. And, you saw the news today. They ran Trubisky out there for 1 play on Sunday, and he gets hurt. And I'm not 100%, but I feel like if it's a serious enough injury that he's going to miss time next year, that his 5th year gets guaranteed.
That might be true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is it that serious? Because I've heard a little bit about this, but I don't know enough.
It might be structural.
Only Chicago, man. Only Chicago. Oh my God.
I'm not 100% sure. Like, I tried to do some research on it today, and the language confused me a little bit about how it gets guaranteed. But I thought, because that's the reason why you see when they bench these guys on their rookie deal, that they don't end up as the number 2 quarterback. They end up as the number 3 quarterback.
Oh, yeah, they bury him.
They don't want that guy going into the game and blowing out his knee and have to pay him next year.
Right. It's a baffling decision anyway, because why would you even run him out there for a play, even though I get it. He runs better than Foles does. Okay. But that's kind of the give and take of making a quarterback change, right? When you say we're gonna move to Nick Foles and off of Trubisky, you say, all right, we might pick up this piece, and this piece of the playbook, but we do sacrifice this piece, and this piece, and you just sort of have to live with that, right? I don't love this notion of Matt Nagy trying to have it both ways, and I think he screwed himself here because, well, he screwed himself anyway when he benched Trubisky for Foles because he kind of hitched his wagon to the Foles thing and just said we're going to ride Foles out, and that's proving not to be a great strategy. But now he's got nothing. He's got to stick with Foles the entire way because the backup's even worse.
So my only hope for him is that the plan was that you were going to see Trubisky for half the game, right? Or he was going to be out there for 15 plays or whatever. Like that there was a full package for him, and that he got hurt on that first run and they knew he was hurt, and that's why we didn't see him again. Because, yeah, if it was just going to be one play, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just think the Bears are just imploding. You watch that game last week against the Saints, and you see a team that's completely undisciplined. You see a team that is lacking identity. You see a team that's supposed to be a defensive team that isn't playing good defense right now. Their biggest star, their biggest payroll guy, Khalil Mack, is completely invisible on the field. Where has he been? And you have to ask the question. Sure, they got out to a hot start at the beginning of the year. We started to talk about, are the Bears for real? And then they completely imploded. You have to start to wonder, is Matt Nagy's job in jeopardy a little bit here? Because I would argue that an implosion season where you start good and end really, really bad is an indictment on the coach more so than a season that is plagued by injuries and you have a bad year. And it seems to me that this team's completely imploding on every single front.
In fairness, I think you were the only one asking if they were real. I think you put them in your power rankings one week, and I just about had a heart attack.
They had one loss at the time. You have to take it seriously. You have to ask the question. I mean, you go out and you get beat the next week, but sure, you got to ask the question.
Ryan, who do you have this week? Is it Tennessee or is it Chicago?
It's Tennessee.
Taking the points as well here?
Yeah, I'm taking the points here. They're not going to be able to stop Derrick Henry. They could put the shambling corpse of Dick Butkus out there, and they wouldn't be able to stop Derrick Henry.
I'm actually going to take the Bears to cover. I think that Tennessee team, I think we're starting to see some real problems with that team. Like that loss to Cincinnati was a bit of an indictment on something. I mean, I think Vrabel can coach. I think Tannehill's doing all right. I like Derrick Henry, but clearly they can't rush the quarterback under any circumstances. And Joe Burrow, who I said last week is the rookie of the year through the halfway point, just diced him up, just carved up a pretty good defensive team. I'm not 100% sold on Tennessee either. This is a prove-it game, I think, for either team. It's not loser leaves town, but it's It's like The Bachelor. Loser leaves the mansion. Like you're not in the contention conversation if you lose this game. You're way out. We're no longer going to include you in the conversation if you lose. But I like Chicago to maybe cover that, and this is going to be a close game, maybe a 3-point game. All right, next game. Let me find my little note here. We are going to look at Miami at Arizona. The Cardinals are laying 4.5 to the Dolphins. these two teams may be the two most interesting teams to watch in the league right now with two young quarterbacks. Where do we see this one?
I am also going to take the favorite in this one yet again and lay the 4.5. I just don't think that Tua's done enough for me to be confident in him. And yes, Miami defense played well last week, but that's been more the aberration than the consistent performance out of them. And so I just think that they're going to give up points. And, they've been a decent defense, don't get me wrong, but that, they scored on defense. They had like 4 turnovers. I don't know that Tua can keep up with that.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going back and forth on this one, and I've been going back and forth on this one since you sent the list. All right, I'm just going to make a decision. I've got Miami to cover. I think that this game is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a game that a lot of people want to watch. I don't think that it's going to be Tua's coming out party. I don't think he's that good yet. I don't think he has that much experience yet. But I feel like that Arizona defense just makes enough mistakes that a team like Miami can hang around. And that there'll be some turnovers, there'll be some sloppy play because Kyler Murray's kind of a gunslinger and Tua's a young quarterback. So you're going to have a couple mistakes going both ways. And when you've got a sloppy game, anything can happen. I think Arizona wins in the end because I think they're just the more talented team at this point. But I'll take Miami to cover.
Late field goal potentially for the Cardinals.
Sure.
I think Tua's going to be better this week. I think the Rams defense is really good. And he had to – it's a lot of growing pains, and it's a new experience to be a first-time starter. I think he'll be better in this second week. I don't think Arizona's defense is as good as Los Angeles. And I think he will have some moments where you see those flashes. I do like Arizona to potentially to probably win this game, but I think this is going to be another one of them high-scoring games that Arizona just wants to get in. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 31-24 kind of game. And it comes down to a late drive, and Kyler Murray makes a couple plays. This Arizona team's fun to watch, though. Like, I'm super in on this Cardinal team, and I want them to play well all season because I want to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like when I was talking about the Dolphins, like they are leading the league in points against, but they're it's the other things I'm talking about, right? Like the creating 4 turnovers, scoring on defense, stuff like they're going to have to do that if Tua's going to keep up with the Cardinals.
I would agree with that, right? They're going to have to score a ton on defense to stay in games. Like they got to get almost like a pick 6 a game just to help out the offense at times or get a special teams play, something like that. Game could be weird though, but I agree with Ryan at the beginning. I think Flores is doing a great job. I think Kingsbury's doing a great job. 2 young coaches, 2 young quarterbacks. I mean, this game should be really fun. I don't know if it's a national TV spot. It's probably not. It's probably going to be a regional thing in the afternoon, and I'm not going to be able to see it unless I'm on Red Zone, but should be a fun game. All right, here we go. Next one. This one's going to be a little closer, I think. It's Baltimore at Indianapolis. The Colts go in 2.5-point underdogs at home.
The home field advantage doesn't do much for me this year. There's some fans, some places, but it's not worth what it used to be. Baltimore, I think, rebounds and does enough. And I just don't trust Phillip Rivers enough, so I will take Baltimore and give the points.
I think that this one is an interesting one because we talk about how Lamar Jackson isn't really fear-inducing this year like he was last year. And I look around at that Colts defense, and they're quietly, like I said at the beginning of the season, they're one of the best in the league. Adding DeForest Buckner, having some more experience in the middle, getting more experienced players on the outside has paid dividends for them. And they're one of the not just one of the best defenses in the NFL. I believe they have the lowest points allowed in the NFL right now at 136. I'm pretty sure that's the lowest. No, the Dolphins are at
130.
But either way, that's first, second on points, and the Ravens are kind of struggling offensively. Against good defenses, the Ravens haven't looked very good. And the Colts are fast. the Colts play a really aggressive zone scheme, and it works for them, and it confuses good quarterbacks. And Lamar Jackson's throwing is not his strength. His eyes downfield are not his strength, and his weapons have not been super consistent this year. So you have to wonder a little bit, is Baltimore really going to be able to get off the ground in this game? And it kind of becomes a question of a defensive struggle. Now, I don't think it can happen in a defensive struggle. And, with the Colts are at home, right?
Yep, correct.
Correct.
Sure. And the home field advantage doesn't matter to me as far as crowd noise, but the lack of travel time can be a factor. And the ability to stay at home before a game can be a factor. And I think that the Colts win this game. I think that they're going to, forget the points. I think they're going to win it outright.
Yeah, in the apology segment, I think this has to go for Phil Rivers here, Zach. I mean, who's played better the last couple weeks than Phillip Rivers? I mean, he's been fantastic.
I'll be honest. I haven't watched the Colts last week, but really, the Ravens are pretty good defensively too.
That's true.
Let's not forget that. And I just don't trust Phillip's noodle arm to get the job done.
Well, with Ayuk out, I have T.Y. Hilton, so I desperately need Phil Rivers to have a good game. All right. Last one.
With that.
Yeah, thank you. T.Y. Hilton, he's on a milk carton too. We're looking for him. Anyway, last one. Obviously, this is the big marquee matchup of the week. It's the Sunday night game. It's New Orleans at Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are 5.5-point favorites against a team that already beat them once. I realize that was week one, and things have kind of changed since then, but have they really changed that much? 5.5? Seems like a lot.
5.5 is too much. I will take the Saints and the points in a game where I think the Saints could win it outright. Just, like Ryan said in his last game. I think that the Saints will have, hopefully, Michael Thomas back. And they continue to show what a weapon Kamara is. And I know that the Bucs have been good at times defensively. But I just don't think that you're going to find a way to slow down New Orleans enough. It's an offensive league.
It's true.
This one strikes me as a shootout.
Yeah, it does feel like that, right? Like there's going to be a lot of points scored. It's Sunday night. Both quarterbacks are feeling probably like they're in the groove here a little bit. I expect a lot of points to get scored, but I guess the one thing I didn't expect though, Ryan, was the Bucs to be like they hit on their draft like right now with the way Antoine Winfield's playing, what they're getting out of Tyrell Johnson, Tyler Johnson. I'm sorry, yeah, the Gopher wide receiver. What they're getting out of Johnson, Winfield, and some of these other draft picks, like Wirfs, the offensive tackle, like it seems like this draft was like a home run for Tampa Bay, and all of those guys are contributing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the reasons that people like me who watched the Gophers last year were saying, if you're Minnesota and you need a third wide receiver, you should be drafting Tyler Johnson. You get to the second round, you should be drafting Tyler Johnson. The guy finds open space. He's really, really good at finding open space and then just catching the ball. And he'll have a couple drops, but the guy catches almost everything, and he's just open.
Yep.
He just finds a spot, and you can't do that and not be good in the NFL. So
Tyler Johnson was also on Packer fans' radar,
and he should have been. But Tyler Johnson would have been terrifying in Green Bay. I mean, he's. You look at how good he is with Brady, and Brady's the best quarterback of all time. I mean, if you would have put him with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, if you could have had him and Devontae Adams line up on the same side of the field, throw either one of them in the slot, and defenses wouldn't know what to do. And on the other side of the ball, Antoine Winfield Jr. is doing what he did at Minnesota and at Eden Prairie, which is just be where the ball is. And
sometimes a little early.
Yeah. I was waiting for that.
But
he was clean. That was clean. Come on. Anyway,
you've just as an undersized guy, a guy that is maybe not the most athletic on the field. You've got to be where the ball's going to be, and he always seems to be in the area where things happen. And as a safety, that's you like to see it, especially out of a rookie. It's cool. I like to see two Gophers, thriving in Tampa Bay.
All right, so you're going to take New Orleans. Ryan, what are you going to do?
This one's tough. I like Tampa in this game. I think that offensively they're just clicking. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I worry about New Orleans defense covering all the weapons that Tampa has, and Tom's really settling in and starting to find different guys on the offense. He's not really leaning on one or two guys. There's Gronk is starting to come alive a little bit. He's had a couple of nice catches to move the chains the last couple of weeks. That when that starts to happen, when guys like Tom Brady start to get hot, it's hard to bet against him. And he's the best quarterback of all time for a reason, I think. And it's because he does this. It's because he goes on these hot streaks. And I look at a game like this, and it's Sunday night. The lights are brightest, and Drew Brees has not looked like Drew Brees all year, really into last year and the year before. And it just, I give the edge to Tampa in a shootout.
There we go. I like Tampa Bay to win this game. I think New Orleans can keep this within 5 points. I think it should be a great game. I like Tampa Bay. I think they're hitting their stride, and we'll see where this ends up. I think they need this game, though, obviously. This is a huge one for New Orleans because I think they need like a statement. They had the Week 1 win against Tampa Bay, but I think they need a statement win. They need a game where they go in somewhere, they beat somebody. I mean, the win against Chicago was nice. It's a nice win. This win, I think, would be a big statement win for New Orleans and for Breeze and for everybody involved. And can we not see Taysom Hill?
Oh, no, you're going to get Taysom Hill. He caught a touchdown pass last week.
I'm done with the Taysom Hill thing. Like, I'm so done with it. I mean, that guy... give me Jameis Winston. Anyway. All right. Time
the best
for...
quarterback on the Saints roster?
I'm telling you the truth. Like, Jameis Winston could be starting for 10 teams right now. Are you trying to tell me that Dallas, when they play Ben DiNucci, and now they're going to play, Gilbert or Rush this weekend, that you're trying to tell me that Jameis Winston couldn't start?
Who are they playing this weekend?
Well, they're going to play Pittsburgh, but they're going to start either what's the kid, Garrett Gilbert out of Texas, or Cooper Rush. That's who they're starting. And you're telling me
they're not going back to DiNucci.
Yeah. Garrett Gilbert played at Texas. Rush played at Missouri, I think, right? Or is
That's
that
a who's who of who gives a shit. That's those. I've never even heard of those guys, and I watch college football.
That's not good. It's not good. And Pittsburgh, if they don't roll Dallas up by a couple 3 scores, I don't know, man. All right, power rankings time. We should we could almost call like the bottom rankings if we ever do the bottom 5 again. Can we call it the DiNucci division? Like I just wonder if we could call it that. I think we should almost call it that, right? The Ben DiNucci division. Anyway,
the
Nooch, yeah.
The Nooch notch.
All right, power rankings. Let's start with our number 1 team. Are we in agreement that it's Pittsburgh, or do we think there's some debate there?
I'm on board with Pittsburgh. I told you guys I would put the undefeated teams at the top until there were no more. So even though I said somebody else scares me a little more, I will keep Pittsburgh at number 1 until they lose.
Me too.
I would do the same.
All right. 1 is Pittsburgh. Congratulations, the Steelers. Are we in agreement that number 2 is Kansas City, or is there room for debate?
I think there's room for debate, but I would agree that Kansas City is the team.
Me too.
I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks
as the number 2 team.
As the number 2 team.
Can you explain why?
I think Russell Wilson, man.
He is the man.
I think that he's on another level this year. He's really good. I think that this year is the first time that I've really thought Russell Wilson could be one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen.
He was my pick for MVP, by the way, just for the record.
By the time he retires, I think that Russell Wilson's going to be in that conversation.
Oh, he's awesome. I love Russell Wilson.
And I think this year is going to be one of the years that we look at and say that year was his trademark year.
It helps when you have a guy like DK Metcalf, though. Like, that guy has gone into FU mode, and I'm very concerned for anybody who plays Seattle, because DK Metcalf is in full-blown FU mode. I wouldn't be surprised if he's good for 8 and 80 and a touch, consistently for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah, he's a man on fire.
So me and Zach have Kansas City. You have Seattle at number 2. So that means you have Kansas City at 3.
That's correct.
All right, I have Seattle at 3. Zach, where do you go?
I reluctantly have Seattle at 3. I mean, they should have lost to the Vikings.
That's true.
And I know that they didn't, but
They should have lost to the Patriots.
yeah, and that's right. Like I think as you go back, you're like, well, they could have dropped that one. They should have dropped that one, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, how good really are they? But
That's
I'll
true.
put them at 3 because I think there's a lot of teams in this mid-range now that we're going to say, how really good are they?
That's true. I mean, I think there's flaws there because obviously defensively, I don't think they're very good, and they let Nick Mullins throw it around on him after he came in for Garoppolo last week. They have a tough time blowing teams out. It just always seems like it's a game late, but they do have Russell Wilson, and I feel like as long as they've got him, they don't need running backs because they're on like their 4th running back right now, and as long as Lockett and Metcalf are on the field, then you feel like they got a chance to win the game. All right, number 3. All right, take that back. Number 4. I have Tampa Bay. I feel like they have found a little something, and that game against the Giants, it's an ugly win, but a win's a win. And as the great Sevi Ballesteros once said, it's not how, it's how many. At the end of the day, I guess I don't care how they win. I just need to see wins, and you're starting to see all the reasons we talked about with Tampa Bay. I think they've moved into the 4 slot for right now.
I think due to recency bias, I would have them there as well. I think there's a lot of good teams. Right? I mean, you look at it, there's, 8 teams with 2 losses?
Yeah.
But when you start working on the list, you go Green Bay just lost, Tennessee just lost, Baltimore just lost. You know, I think Tampa Bay is right there. But that spot is up for grabs this weekend.
And even though New Orleans beat Tampa Bay, there is something about the eye test. I don't know. I just look at Tampa Bay, and I think Tampa Bay is a better team. I don't know. Ryan, what do you think?
I think my last 2 spots are probably the most fluid for me. I could put any number of teams in these 2 spots. But for very specific reasons, I'm not putting Tampa Bay in this one because I don't think their defense is as good as the team that I'm going to put here, and that's the Indianapolis Colts.
Wow.
I think the Colts are playing really good football. Their defense is really solid, and you know my entering into the top 5, it has been a kiss of death for teams. So I feel a little bit bad. Sorry, Colts, but I have the Colts here.
I don't know. I think the Colts have been okay on defense, but I just don't feel like they're playing anyone. I mean, Baltimore's defense is better than the Colts.
I don't think that it is. I think that the Colts defense is going to show this weekend that they're a better defense than Baltimore. I think that this is a good test for them, but I trust the Colts defense. I think that they're going to get good pressure. I think they're going to have good coverage. I don't see that Baltimore is going to score a ton of points. So I think we're going to come out of this weekend feeling a lot different about Indianapolis than we do right now.
I just think Baltimore's given up fewer points, and you look at the Colts who they've played, and it's like Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, Bears, Browns, Bengals, Lions. I mean, that's a who's who of the dumpster.
Hey, more likely, or what are we going to see more of? Is Lamar Jackson more likely to throw 2 touchdowns, or is Phillip Rivers more likely to say "dadgummit" 7 times?
I would say dadgummit.
Dadgummit's gonna happen. How much have you watched, Ryan, of Phil Rivers talking trash?
Look, I've seen the gamut of Phil Rivers talking trash, and if that's trash, I'd like to take it out.
It's pretty aggressive. Like, he gets after people, but he doesn't swear. It's this really odd thing.
Look, as someone who swears like a sailor and sometimes has trouble containing himself even on the pod, look, there are a few things that are more unsettling than a man who can get that fired up and not swear about it.
He's got 9 kids. I mean, I refuse to believe he didn't get to 9 without 1 curse word. I just refuse to believe that. I feel like at some point the wife had to have come in and said, "Philip, number 8's in the oven," and he didn't say something like. I mean, he had to have rattled off a GD it or something. He had to have said something.
He's like the kind of guy that stuck his head in the pillow and screamed it. Nobody heard it or understood it, but he had to walk into the other room so he knew that nobody would hear it.
He didn't sit there and go, "Oh, really? 8, 9 children? Oh my! Well, dadgummit! Well, dash it all! I mean, there's no way. There is no way he did that." Anyway.
Well, God bless it. Let me just step into this room over here.
And okay, number. Well, who wants Culver's tonight? Anyway,
How about some Zaxby's?
Number 5. I have the Arizona Cardinals. I'm starting to have a small crush on Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know if it's real or not. I think we're sort of in an early just sort of text each other phase. I don't think it's like a real serious thing yet, but I'm starting to become a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury, and I got the Arizona Cardinals number 5.
That's where I was going to go as well. Just for something fun and new.
Yeah, you and I are seeing this clearly, Zach, right now. I got to tell you.
Here's the deal. Are they going to end up in the top 5? No, they're not. But it's exciting and fun. Like you said, it's a fun brand of football to watch right now. They're doing some exciting stuff. They're playing well. They're not going to last there. I think that there are other 2 last teams that maybe are better long term, but I wanted to put them in my top 10 because they've been fun to watch, or top 5 because they've been fun to watch.
Yeah, I just like the way they kind of scheme Hopkins open somehow. Like you just Hopkins. Everybody knows he's getting the ball, and yet it seems like he doesn't for when he was playing for Houston. I felt like he made a lot of acrobatic catches, and he had to catch a lot of double teams and things like that. So far, I feel like he's open a lot. And it's either Kyler Murray throwing him open or it's Kingsbury scheming him open, but he is getting a lot of really quality looks, and that Cardinals team's fun, Ryan.
Yeah, they are not my number 5 team. My number 5 team might shock you, actually.
Boy.
It's the Philadelphia. I'm just kidding.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Anyway.
No, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Bucks here. I think they're like for all the reasons you said, they're a really good team. They're clicking at the right time. I don't really trust their defense yet, but I think that they're a team that's getting hot. And when you got a Hall of Fame quarterback that's getting hot, that's a dangerous thing.
You got to trust Tom, my friend. That's the key. Trust Tom, and good things happen. It's going to be a great one. All right, we are at that stage. 1 hour into the podcast. That means somebody's got to go. Send him out back. Send him off to the Elimination Chamber. Where are we going this week? Let me recap for all the folks who are listening in. By the way, thanks for listening. Once again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean. I appreciate everybody who listens in. Continue to tell your friends. We also have our Facebook page. I believe that is Tim Podcast. You can look it up. Tim Anderson Podcast Show on Facebook. You can find it there. Also, a YouTube channel. And you can send us an email at thetimpod@gmail.com if you want to offer up your thoughts. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Teams out so far: Jets, Panthers, Broncos, Texans, Falcons, Jaguars. Last week we took out the Vikings. And normally after we take you out, you win the next week, with the exception of the Jets. So go figure. Maybe that'll happen this week. Who is heading into the Elimination Chamber this week?
Whew.
Ryan, why don't you go first?
Yeah, this one's tough. Look, I think that there's a lot of teams that we could throw into this spot. We had discussed Denver, and then Denver goes out and beats LA.
Denver's in already too. We put Denver in week 3 after they lost.
That's
after
right.
After Locke went out and they were 0-2.
Now, if that's the case, I'm starting to wonder if maybe we have to start thinking about LA. The Chargers, maybe?
Yeah.
I think that's something that, was kind of surprising last week, especially with the big lead, right? They had the lead, and then it wilted away. My 2 suggestions, I think the Cincinnati Bengals are ripe for the list. They're 2-5-1. They did win last week, but their division is still pretty good, right? I mean, Cleveland's in 3rd at 5-3. They're not coming back. And then the other one, it's probably time to put one of these NFC East teams out to pasture. And I think that would be the Giants. But if we still are worried that the 1-7 Giants might catch the 3-4-1 Eagles, I'm okay with keeping them in. But come on, they're bad.
Yeah, I was starting to get there with you on the Giants after watching them on Monday night. You just start to say, like, even a bad Philly team's going to beat this Giants team. And they already have the win on them, so they have like a 2.5 to 3 game lead now on the Giants when you factor in the 2 more wins and the tie. So you have an extra loss that that the Giants have that the Eagles don't, plus the head-to-head win. Now you start to see that number. You're like, the Giants ain't winning 3 games here. Like, they're just not. So
I have one other suggestion here. Just one other name I want to throw out there that we haven't discussed, and I don't think we ever thought we would discuss. The New England Patriots are 2-5.
Bite your tongue, young man.
And they're not playing particularly well.
No, they're playing terrible.
In a division that's quickly slipping away from them.
Yes.
With a 6-2 Buffalo team up there.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be this week, but might be a team that we should start to talk about. Maybe throwing in the old elimination chamber.
I will say this.
Yeah, I think they're a week away still.
Yeah, if they lose to the Jets on Monday Night Football, it's a cinch. All right, it'll be a cinch. It'll be the equivalent of old Earl Hebner locking the cage door and padlocking it with them in it. That'll happen right away if they lose to the Jets on Monday Night Football. I can't give it to them until that happens.
There's just one thing about that we have to talk about. Jets, Jets. Let's go, baby. Let's have the Jets beat the Patriots on Monday night.
Will Bill tank to the Jets to keep Trevor out of the East?
No,
Trevor out of the East. He might draft him.
That's a chess piece. Oh, look at Belichick moving the chess pieces around. See, he's thinking about it so differently than everybody else. Oh,
I think what. Here's the other thing too. New England took a lot of heat, for how they've been playing right now, but they also had a lot of guys opt out. I feel like they had more than any other NFL team opt out of the season.
They had a lot of opt outs. They've had a ton of injuries. I think the COVID hit at a horrible time. And you look at their offense. I mean, I think like your high school offense is more dynamic than the Patriots is right now. It's run, quarterback draw, short pass, run, quarterback draw, short pass. That's not enough. Like, you got to do more.
I can tell you haven't watched our high school offense.
I have not looked at the film. I haven't had access to the film. Again, there's limited fans. They only let 20 people into these games. I mean, you have there was better access to the Zapruder film in 1965 than there's access to the Coon Rapids high school football team. Anyway.
I will say, though, unlike Bill, we are making a quarterback change this week.
Ooh, that's big news. Breaking news here on the pod. Oh, my God, it's so good. Anyway, I'm not ready to go there with New England yet. The Chargers are interesting because I think they've blown 4 straight double-digit leads in 4 consecutive weeks. Now, they hung on and beat the Jags, but they're blowing leads left and right, but they really should be like 5-2. They should be in the conversation. Justin Herbert's good. It's very frustrating, that Chargers team. I agree with Ryan. I think that team's coming. But, Zach, I think a 1-7 team, the Giants have to go, right? They have to go to the chamber. Finally, get them in there. Put them out of their misery.
Perfectly.
Finally, the NFC East is on the board, in the chamber. Old Danny Dimes.
They've got a game against each team in the division left. But even if they sweep that, they're only at 4 wins. And the rest of their schedule is really tough. Like, they're not coming back.
I think they're going to win 3 games max. And, Joe Judge might be a fine coach, and there's things I like about what they do, and I actually think Jason Garrett calls good plays. Like, when Jones throws the ball, guys are open. He just can't put it in their hands. Like, it's just not consistently enough.
Yeah, and they had a lot of pressure last week. The D-line was in his lap on a bunch of those throws.
So, like, there's good things happening there. There's just not enough. And they clearly, I mean, they need more than Saquon Barkley, but they just need a lot of help in a lot of areas. But Giants, good riddance to you. Patriots, don't let me down. I don't want to put you in the chamber next week, but you know what will happen. I mark my words. If they lose to the Jets, they're in. And we may not even have a discussion about it. We'll see what happens. That is the pod, guys. Wow, time flies. We're at an hour, 10 minutes. Once again, I want to thank everybody who's continued to listen to the podcast and continue to help us out. Share us out whenever you can. Let people know that you're listening and that you enjoy the show. Our numbers continue to rise, and we get to hear people listening in different places, which is great. So we want to continue to have that. Most of Ryan's blue states now are officially listening to the pod, which is really nice. But we're even getting some red states reoccurring, which is really great, which shows the healing power of our podcast, which is what I want to continue to see. So I want to thank everybody for continuing to listen, and then we will be right back here once again next week talking about football. Until then, for Zach, for Ryan, I'm Tim, saying keep your head up, and we'll see you next time.